Welcome to ReelAsia. If it's television, film, or animation from the East, you'll find it right here on ReelAsia. In this episode, we'll be looking at Akiba Strip the animation. This animated series was created not only to celebrate the 25th anniversary of animation studio Gonzo, but also to take advantage of the success and popularity of the Akiba Strip video games. The title itself is a clever pun, as it's a trip through a place called Akihabara, often shortened to Akiba, but it's also about stripping off clothes. Akiba Strip. You see, really highbrow stuff, huh? What a wonderfully smart, nuanced and clever show we happen to have started off with. And much to my surprise, the show even received an English dub of relatively high quality.
We've exposed your plot, and next I'll expose your butt! That's never gonna happen! No one wants to see that!
When I recently discovered that an animated series based on Akiba Strip had been created, I decided to drop all other shows I was watching and switch my focus entirely to this one. And I managed to stick it through all 13 episodes without getting bored of the show, which is really quite something as not every show is immediately palatable like that. Akiba Strip the animation was streamed in English as a Funimation simuldub. What this means is that the episodes were available online, dubbed in English on the very same day that they were first broadcast in Japan. The team at Funimation and their partners in Japan worked around the clock with the aim of releasing every episode merely 30 minutes after their original Japanese broadcast. I'm not sure how much time they had to work on each episode, but needless to say this was a pretty amazing feat and a great amount of effort poured into a show that isn't Dragon Ball levels of popular. As was the case with each Akiba Strip game, the animated series has its own unique cast of characters and an original story. This was disappointing for me at the beginning, as I was hoping this series would feature some of the characters I'd grown to love. Much to my dismay, they are nowhere to be seen, so I had to come around to the animated series' new characters and story, which I must admit took some effort. Despite this, it was great fun to get acquainted with the new cast. About the only connecting threads between the animated series and the games is that they are set in Akihabara, the enemies in both are human-like entities that possess vampiric traits, and that the only way to defeat them is to strip them of the majority of their clothes. Truly, the show is no different than the games are, providing excessive fan service whenever a character is stripped down to their unmentionables, guys and girls. This isn't a high-class intellectual show, but would someone really expect that out of something called Akiba Strip? Whereas in the games you might fight synthisters or Kagayashi, here they are called Matrotica. They seek to destroy Akihabara and rebuild it without the corrupting influence of humanity and otaku culture. These bad guys seek to strip Akiba of everything that makes it Akiba, and the otaku are not going to take it. One such otaku is Tamotsu Denkigai, a lovably eccentric teenager with all the typical interests one might expect from a healthy young adult.
Shield your eyes, this isn't for kids!
On what would have been just any other normal day, Tamotsu and his sister Niwaka find themselves wrapped up in a conflict that would, cliché incoming, change their lives forever. One incredibly beautiful red-haired Kohaku, Matome Mayanaka, is backed into a corner by Matrotica and their Bugged One army. In a mad bid to save the girl he has only just met, Tamotsu jumps in front of an attack and sacrifices himself to save Mayanaka. Moved by his actions, Mayanaka uses her power as a Kohaku to revive Tamotsu, turning him into a Bugged One. In exchange for his lost humanity, Tamotsu gains the power of stripping. With this, he fights the evil Bugged Ones in order to save Akihabara. At least that's when he's not playing Street Fighter, working a part-time job, dating a robot, or any of the other crazy shit that goes on in this show. Miyonaka, she's the series tsundere, which basically means she's always complaining about Tamotsu while playing hard to get.
That's a pity, Tamotsu. It's too bad you don't want one of us to be your girlfriend.
True.
Even though she's often disgusted by Tamotsu's behavior, she still hangs around him most of the time. They end up together in the end because true love yada yada. Niwaka, Tamotsu's sister, is an otaku herself. She is a middle school student who cares deeply for her brother, and while not much use in a fight, she does help keep the characters grounded whenever they go off on one.
Wake up, big bro! Oh, snap. Man, that girl can hit.
Completing the main four, Arisa Ahokainen is certainly the character who has the biggest on-screen presence, if you know what I mean. I mean, she's got big tits.
Oh, Kentucky Fried Titties!
She's a half-Japanese transfer student from Finland who had moved to Japan to study otaku culture after having already travelled the earth, mastering British etiquette and humour, Chinese martial arts, and more. Having the strength and combat prowess of a bugged one, but being human, more often than not her fighting ability comes in extremely handy. And because she doesn't evaporate when her clothes come off, she gets to show a lot of skin too. Nice. In the third episode, Miyonaka, Niwaka, and Arisa make an idol group named Manias, who experience minor success. Not that these folks have time to be idols or obsess over figurines and manga when the villainous Matrotica are constantly coming up with the unusual plans to dominate Akiba. Whether it be tricking citizens into working for thank yous rather than for real wages, or buying out every rice cooker and reselling it at a huge profit to confuse the market, they'll stop at nothing to make Akiba crumble. In each episode, when confronted, the bugged ones have a tendency to explain their harebrained schemes with little hesitance, oftentimes explaining the plan to the utmost minutiae, despite the heroes commenting on the ridiculousness of the whole thing.
My beautifully sinister plan is to cut labor costs, provide cheap food and drink, and rule Akiba from its stomach. And now that you've outed me, I clearly can't let you live!
I'll use his foreign status to buy goods at duty-free discounts and resell to Japanese at full price to warp demand and confuse the market. And in that economic chaos, we will swoop in and conquer.
That's the craziest plan I've heard yet!
And I thought internet resellers were bad.
It's a very media-aware show. Characters will often make references to how anime is made and the typical plots you'll encounter. On occasions where an object is necessary to progress the story, the characters will have them in their possession for no real reason.
That's right! I made it with the instant ice maker the professor was carrying for no reason!
The script is oftentimes juvenile, which actually makes for the occasional gut laugh.
Abnormal shutdown detected.
Huh?
To protect private user information and delete vast libraries of porn, this machine will now self-destruct.
I must give extra kudos to the voice talent and ADR director on the Funimation dub for creating a top-tier dub, especially considering the time constraints they were working within.
By the rules of the cards, I attack the enemy player directly! Descend your virginal hammer of righteousness!
I wasn't familiar with a single person on the project by name, but recognized them from their portfolio of work. Each voice fits the character nicely and none of them were painful to listen to. A rarity considering most anime will have at least one voice I find truly awful. But the praise has to end here for a while. I have to get serious now. Parts of this show do feel like a paid advertisement for the Akihabara shopping district, as games and anime about the city often do. Real restaurants and shops are shown as blatantly opaque placements within the series. This is most notable during episode 10, where real restaurants and their menus are described in depth.
I give you bingo! They've been serving the best curry in town since 1973. Gonzo is Akiba's most famous Chinese place.
Whoa, their menu's huge.
Plus, there's weekly fried rice specials and limited dishes you can hear about if you follow Gon the owner online.
So this is Kitchen Jiro. I've heard of this place for years, but never tried it either.
It's the best set meal restaurant in town. Since we've already had curry today, I'll try the minced meat cutlet and fried chicken with large rice.
It's fine in a video game because there's at least a sense of discovery as you explore Akiba, but here it's just advertising shoved down your throat. This kind of partnership is made possible by the Akihabara Area Tourism Organization, who work with game designers, anime studios, just about anyone who can make transparent advertisements for Akihabara masquerading as an anime series and video games. They've done such a good job of romanticizing it, seeing as the series just made me want to visit the place even more. Adding to the blatant advertising, each episode ending theme is provided by a popular Akihabara-based music artist. The games had a similar trick, placing adverts for Akihabara businesses, musicians, games and anime on the loading screens. While the show has fun characters, a great sense of humour, and splendid animation, you really can't forget that it's one massive, thinly veiled advert for Akihabara. Keep that in mind when watching the show, in the same way you'd remember Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Transformers are glorified toy commercials. That said, taking everything into consideration, Akiba's Trip the Animation gets a rating of recommended. If you like comedy anime with a strong sense of identity, you really can't go wrong with Akiba's Trip the Animation. If you're new to Akiba's Trip, it serves as a great welcoming show with characters and situations uniquely its own, requiring no knowledge of the games. If you are a follower of this franchise, and why wouldn't you be, then watching this show is a serious no-brainer, as it carries the same great sense of humour from the games and contains nods to the series as a whole. Make sure to follow at Real_Asia on Twitter and subscribe to ReelAsia for more review and commentary, and karate chop that like button. Until next time, sayonara.